Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Girls Got Game. I hope no one's stuck in the snow.
Like half of us were.
Yes, that's correct. You may notice we're starting at 10:19, but that's okay because you know what? We're fashionably late, and that's fine. Today we've got a lot in store for you. We're going to be talking about the types of sports fans and some new news that has come up. Sadly on Remembrance Day, so I'm not sure if it's appropriate to say Happy Remembrance Day, but I hope everyone had their poppies on. And
Oh God.
otherwise Don Cherry's gonna come after you. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So there are, of course, different types of sports fans. We learned this in our sport marketing course. Shout out to Laurel again. She was on our show last week. The three that we're going to be focusing on today are the trend positive, the game expert, and the connection fans. So today is going to be fun because you're going to learn a little bit in our show. So, does anyone want to explain them, or should I just keep going?
Well, I think what's good is I think we're all different.
Yeah.
I think like we have at least one of each in this room. Personally, I'm a connection fan. I just literally love sports for like the aspect of it bringing people together and just watching it with family and friends and like the whole like event of making sports a big deal and making like a important game a big deal. Like that's what I'm in it for. That's probably why I don't know a lot about statistics and a lot about a lot of sports is because I'm not really watching it for that. I'm watching it just because I love the way everyone just gets passionate about it. And I know enough about most sports to be able to like have a conversation about it and be like, oh, that was like a horrible player. Like, oh my God, that was amazing. Like, I think that just comes with the more you watch sports, you're able to talk about them. But I think I'm definitely a connection fan, which is like people that just watch it for the connection it brings between people.
Should we do like a brief
Like overview
explanation of the types of fans? Okay, I don't know if I have the best definition, but we all did the same test. So the trend positive test, the way I describe it is you're the person who's looking at the life of the athlete off the field. So you're interested in what clothes they're wearing, who they're dating, what car they drive, like what...
The brands that they're wearing. Like
Nike,
the
brands.
Who's sponsoring.
They're cute babies,
The dogs.
for sure. Okay, maybe I'm a trend positive
Definitely the dogs.
The dogs.
I'm
like,
here for the dogs.
where they go on vacation. You're looking at their life away from their professional activity. And then we hop into the game expert fan. The game expert fan is pretty much like the stats junkie. So you're really, the way you communicate with the industry is through the numbers, through the stats, through all the I don't know how else to say it, through like the statistical support
they're more
that
on the
really
number
hypes up
side.
your team. Yeah. That one's pretty straightforward. And then there's the connection fan, which Emma just mentioned. The connection fan is the person who socially watches sports and connects with sports and communicates through, it's a Sunday night, I'm going to go to my uncle's house and watch football with my family, or it's a Friday night, I'm going to go to the bar and watch basketball with my friends, that kind of thing. Like, they wouldn't necessarily just watch and keep up with sports on their own. It's very much of a community.
It's an excuse to get together with other people, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, we know that Emma is a connection fan. And
Jumps in really quick on that one.
don't get us wrong, there are lots of more types of fans.
Yeah.
There's tons.
I'm pretty sure there's like seasonal one where it's like, I'm pretty sure you only tune in when it's like your sport.
Yeah,
so
like
you're
when
not
it's the Olympics or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And like Olympics. So there are many more. So if you don't fit in with those three, don't freak out. Maybe we'll talk about more throughout the show.
Yeah, and it's important to talk about, I think, because a lot of people don't understand that girls fit into all of these categories. A lot of people say, like, oh, you're a girl, you probably don't know anything about stats, which for my case would be totally true.
Yeah.
But
I think it is generally like the game expert. I think like statistics have proven that most of them are men.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that, like, I think a lot of the times when you say a stat and it's like, oh, well, majority are female or majority are male, that doesn't mean that none are the opposite gender.
Yeah.
So there are a good like percentage of women that are game experts and that enjoy like the stats and the more like numbers part of games.
I mean, like, look at this room. Like, there's 5 of us in here.
For once, I think
Five
it's the
of us
second
in
time
here.
we've had all of us in here
Yeah,
this season.
Good job, guys. And one of us is game expert, I'm assuming. Yeah, Kennedy's a game expert. So that's a good
Ooh.
stat.
I know.
That's a good stat.
I
1
found
out
a
of
real
5.
stat, guys.
Okay,
so
fire away.
That was our own stat.
okay, super brief sentence. Trend positives, they love the sport and what it says about them, so it kind of like gives them background to themselves. 49% are female, whereas only
Ooh.
51% are male, which
Alrighty,
is still
boys.
Pretty close.
yeah, it's close. Then game experts, they want the facts, statistics, and tactics. So I guess you could also throw in like when
Like
you're actually talking about
plays.
line changes and stuff like that. Yeah,
line changes, the way the lines are
Yeah.
arranged. And
Oh, that's really interesting. Wait,
I know, I
wanna
didn't think
get
about
into
that.
See, like, I'm interested in stats, but I can't wrap my head around
I
it.
got you.
Kennedy, we should do a whole other show on stats to educate our girls out there. Even though I think
Even
most
us.
of our listeners are male. You think? Which is really interesting.
Shout out to all our male friends
And our moms.
and our
Sport
moms,
media.
definitely our moms. My mom texted
My-
me this morning.
My
about
mom's
it.
definitely not listening right now, but hey, Sam.
All right, game experts are 65% male and 35% female. So that one I feel like is more expected. Like it's definitely like we were just saying. And
But
then
you
connection
also,
fans.
you also
oh, yeah,
gotta
sorry.
look up at the causes of that.
Mhm.
So a lot of the girls,
Right.
I feel like, especially me, like we're really intimidated by it.
Yeah.
We may not have been brought up that way. Whereas men, I feel, are more brought up that way. They're totally like, oh yeah, this is what I
feel like
am.
it's because there's such an expectation for them to know
Yeah.
so much about sports
Yeah.
that they put that pressure upon themselves to know it,
Mm-hmm.
whereas we're not expected to know it. So I think we kind of just fall into our place. If we do like statistics, we do. If we don't,
Yeah.
there's no pressure to like
That's
it.
a good point.
So I feel
I
like
feel
I
like-
do feel bad sometimes for men because it's like they are like if a guy identifies as like a connection fan or like
or
a
trend positive fan. Ooh.
I think that exactly that's probably
It's
the most
different.
like stereotypical feminine
Yeah.
role. But based on your stats, it's not that different.
No.
So I don't know. I feel bad for them because they're so expected to be game
Mhm.
experts.
Which is a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's okay, guys. You know what? If
Be what you want to be.
If you want to look at, Deshane's baby online,
I do feel
which
like it's
I
getting
do,
yeah.
like,
No, they're so cute.
Go for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, even like, remember in class when we had to like categorize ourselves into like different fan categories, I feel like a lot of males were trend positive or connection fans as well, not just stats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember I went in for the game expert one, obviously, right? And it was literally me and like one other girl in our program out of like 20 people
Oh, yeah.
that sat in
Keaton?
that
Was it
front row.
Keaton?
It was Keaton,
Yeah.
yeah. And like
She's
there was
cool.
like 20 people that sat in that front row, and like 2 of them were
You know what?
girls. So
You know what I was kind of surprised at though was I remember so for anyone who wasn't in class with us, we were talking about the 3 fan types and we were categorizing ourselves. We were actually at the Mattapi. So she was like, if you're a trend positive fan, sit in this row. If you're a blah, 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 sit in this row, kind of like that, right? And then she looks at the last people and she was asking us, I think she was, when we were talking about game experts, and she goes, does anyone know the score of the final Raptors game? And like I raised my hand because I was like, yeah, like obviously who doesn't know that? And then I was the only one that knew it. I was
I
like,
was gonna say
none
the
of the
entire
game experts knew
the
it.
entire
weird.
game expert row. I remember it because I was sitting beside. I think I was beside Julian on one side, then Keaton was on my other side, and we were like, "Who remembers that? Like that was so long
Well, I
ago.
think
Like
it also
they won.
depends
Who
on your
cares?
sport. Like if you're a game
True,
expert for
true.
baseball, you're probably
Yeah.
not going to know all the stats for basketball. If you're a game
True,
expert for
that's
hockey,
true.
like I feel like game experts I think are generally more specific. Like they know a lot of stats about a lot of like sports, but I think that they usually have their one area of like
Yeah, that's a
super
good point.
expertise.
That's true. Yeah, because I kind of just started getting like watching basketball when I like came into this program because I wanted to like expand my knowledge on sports. I never really watched it before, and then obviously when the Raptors like were on their run, it got super exciting, and like I was like really tuned in then. But like growing up, I was always like hockey and baseball focused, and then I'd say more of like a connection fan with football, but there's still a little bit of some stats in there, just not as much as the other 2, right? So
Ella, did you have a stat on the connection fans?
So connection fans are the same as the trend positive. So 51% are male and 49% are female, which I feel like that's pretty accurate, right?
Yeah,
I feel like a
for
connection
sure.
fan can be everyone, whereas like we were talking about, it's almost expected for males to become these game experts. But I just scrolled down farther. This is all literally from the thing we had to read in class, like from RepuCom.
The thing that
But I thought it was
probably
so
none of us
interesting.
read.
Guys, actually read it. It's actually really cool.
They had cool
they
graphics.
categorize the
Yeah.
income group of each fan too, and like how interested in sports they are. So I was just looking at the game expert one, and I guess like when they did the survey, they asked, how interested are you in sports? And there was like little, like I'm just kind of interested, I'm interested, and then I'm very interested. And what would you think a game expert fan is? Are they little interested, or like very, very?
Very.
Probably very. I would say very.
Which is what I thought too.
Because they're kind of intense about it.
Exactly.
They're like,
Yeah.
oh,
But I don't
so-and-so
know-
has
yeah.
this, yeah.
No, I agree. I would totally say that, but based off your reaction, I'm assuming it's not that.
Yeah. Well, it says only 31% were very interested, whereas 47% are just like the middle interested,
I almost
which is
feel
weird.
like that touches on Emma's point, though, of
Yeah.
how like men are almost expected to
Yeah.
be that way, and
I also think it's
like
a
whether
society
they,
we live in.
yeah, and like
Just like,
it
'cause, like,
seems like, you know, what you said, Emma, whether like they want to or not, they like are expected to be a game expert, and like I feel like touching on that, it's like, you know, they might not want to be in
Yeah.
that stats position, but you know, because of like the demand or their friends or whatever, they are, and so that makes them more invested in the stats and less invested in the sport.
also, I think the way we consume sports, like a lot of people don't have time or don't catch the game, the actual game, so they're just checking the stats on their phone because
That's true.
stats are such an easy thing to like consume over like text, like getting those like notifications.
Second
So, like-
screen.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. So like I think that maybe like it's like you're interested in the game, but you can't be very interested because you can't watch it so all the time. I
My
don't know if that
mom-
makes any sense.
No, that makes sense. My mom always makes fun of me because, like, growing up playing hockey, I was, like, often in the rink or something during a hockey game or something, right? And, like, I would eat my data because my phone would go off from, like, 4 different apps whenever, like,
Something
the
would
Penguins
happen.
would score or, like, the Blue Jays would get a home run or something. Like, I'd get notifications from, like, the Score app, Sportsnet, TSN. I've, like, Twitter. I have a million different notifications. So, like,
Yeah.
my mom always laughs at me because, like, especially in the end of hockey season, the beginning of baseball season, when it's kind of overlapping, my phone is like constantly buzzing just with those notifications. It gets kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie, but
But I mean, it's so easy to like just if you miss a game, it's so easy to just look at the stats and you know
watch
everything.
the highlights, right? It's
Yeah, you know
simple.
the score, you know everything. And I feel like with stats, it's like so precise. Like you can't fake a stat, you can't make up a stat. It's just what it is, you know, it's how the game went. Whereas like if you read an article, like people have different opinions.
Yeah.
And in stats, it's just one thing.
Exactly.
It's the score or like how many points you have. So
Yeah, I find more articles are less like statistical recap, and like if it is, it's not a lot of numbers, it's a lot of like breaking down the plays and breaking down what happened and like telling the reader the final score, whereas some is more like a blog post where there's like a take in it or whatever, and it's opinionated, right? So
Yeah, that's why I thought it was interesting that the game expert fans weren't super
Yeah.
into it, right? Because I feel like
I mean,
Like,
if
at least
it was
for me,
like,
yeah,
I'd
stats
be
are
very,
hard.
I'd be very interested. Like, I'd be
Yeah.
in that 30. Was it 31%? You said
yeah,
definitely. Like, I'm so
Yeah.
invested in that it's. I don't even know. Like, honestly, I don't even know how to explain.
I just
it,
feel
but-
like too, you can't just look at one stat and be like, oh, now I know about this player or about this team, right? Like I feel like
No, yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
gonna look at stats, you're looking at more than just one, which would, I'm assuming, make you, more interested than
Yeah.
others.
Yeah, I
But-
know a big one. Like, there was this person who won. There was a player on the Bulldogs last year who was minus 35 at the end of the season, and like looking at that stat, it doesn't look good.
Yeah.
But you have to think about like all the different aspects of it, because he had a 51-point season
Mm-hmm.
and he was the top defenseman, so he played the most minutes on a not a very good hockey team
Yeah.
who got scored on a lot. So like that minus rating is almost inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people who were like attacking him, saying he's like the worst defenseman in the league and whatever. And it's like, well, you have to look at the situation and you have to understand, because it comes down to more than just plus minus. And honestly, plus minus isn't really an important stat
Yeah.
in hockey to begin with. So,
Well, I was just looking at the website again, and they have a whole other like report, I guess you would call it, on women's sports. I thought that'd be a cool transition into our next segment. Okay, I'm just going to read it out. A survey across 8 key markets around the world. Interesting that this does not include Canada, but it includes the US, the UK, France, Italy, bless you, Germany, Spain, Australia, and New Zealand. And it says
New Zealand was a key market.
Yeah, but
and
not Canada.
Yeah, I'm
wasn't?
really confused.
Is
too.
it
don't know.
like because of their rugby or something?
I don't know. Like maybe it's just a American company doing it. So they
Yeah.
have some sort of
Oh,
legal. I don't know.
Yeah.
No idea. But they said they found that 84% of sports fans are interested in women's sports, and of those, 51% are male, which confirms that women's sports engage in a gender-balanced audience, which is cool, but also interesting that I feel like in Canada it's like almost not the complete opposite, but it's definitely not that. They make this
Yeah.
sound very positive.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say I definitely don't feel that.
No.
Like this is exactly what we came into school
Yeah.
to change, and them saying that like it's completely positive, everyone's interested, the males
Yeah.
are backing it. I feel like in Canada we don't feel that as much, but that also might just be because hockey is one of our main
So big,
sports,
yeah.
and we've had a lot of,
yeah. If it were
struggles
the
with
case, then like female hockey would be just as like
yeah.
important or like televised as like male hockey, which it's not. So clearly, they're not an equal viewership of it.
Yeah.
That's a very shocking statistic.
They also have quite different sports in
Yeah,
other
no,
places
yeah.
of the world. Like, what was it called? It was called like
Is
netball or something.
Is American like is it baseball their biggest one?
I think so.
I would say so, probably.
That's pretty male
Baseball,
dominated.
football.
Dominated.
And football.
and especially
And football.
you go
baseball.
with
yeah.
football.
Football, I feel like it's almost like there are no women playing football, whereas baseball, like we were watching a feature on one of the girls on the baseball team here, and like she was saying she always gets the question when she says she plays baseball, they're like, oh, like softball? And she's like, no, I play
Damn.
baseball.
I think
Right?
that's a big
Yeah, I
key
don't know. Yeah.
about baseball being so male dominated is because it's just come to be like a common thing. Like,
Normal.
softball's for girls, baseball's for boys.
Which I don't understand because like they're two different sports. So
They
like
are.
like, I
Literally.
don't get it.
It really frustrates me. I worked for a baseball team during the summer, and the guys would hit the balls like far, right? First of all, the ball is smaller, so therefore it's lighter.
Yeah.
So you can probably hit it a lot farther, right? Science. This is what I've learned. A softball, it's bigger. The throw is different. If it's coming at you at a slower speed, then you're not going to be able to hit it with as much of it's like a, what is it? Action and reaction kind of thing. Okay, I'm really messing this up. It sounded way better in my head. But the point is that they're two completely different
Yeah.
sports, and they shouldn't. I feel like in some way it shows society that male and female
Yeah.
are so completely different. Like their talent doesn't match, and
But you're also basing it on two completely different sports.
Exactly.
That's what
Yeah.
I don't get. It's like if you're like comparing the stats between like every like thing was even, like the playing field was even, and you had males and females playing baseball, I really don't think there'd be that much of a difference in interest. But it's just because male baseball obviously is a lot more televised. So of course people are going to be like, well, yeah, male baseball's better because that's all they're seeing, right? So I don't know. That's weird to me.
And one thing that was always really obvious to me as a kid when I played softball was why they call it a softball.
I
I know
that.
it's
Yeah.
softer than a baseball, but even
is
the
it though? They
wording,
freaking feel hard.
hurt, yeah.
Like, I don't-
but even the wording of the sport makes automatic connotations with it's softball. It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
baseball, you know? So
That's a
that
good
definitely,
point.
but we can't do anything about that. That's the name of the sport.
Yeah.
It's like saying, soccer and football. They're like, when you say
Yeah.
soccer, it sounds different than when you say football.
Those are two completely different. Yeah, I
Yeah.
see what you mean. But that's why I think it's so cool to see, like this summer. I don't know if you guys heard about Maddie Frecking, who is 12 years old, and she's from Minnesota, and she was the only girl to play in the 2019 Little League World Series. Sorry, and she
Oh, yeah,
plays
wasn't she-
second base
she-
and pitcher, and she's the 19th girl to play in the Little League World Series in 72 years, and the first one to play in the last 5.
oh my
That's
goodness.
So,
crazy.
but that's why, like we were just
A
saying, it's so
queen.
sad to see that people treat baseball and softball so differently, but there are people like changing that, and yeah, she's only 12 and she's only one person, but like it's
Yeah.
a start. You know what I mean?
And a lot of times,
Didn't she like absolutely kill it too?
Yeah,
like
she
didn't
did.
she do so well?
Yeah.
That's
Good
so
for
like
her.
that's like why aren't there more? Like why?
I think at that age, like when you're 12, a lot of it has to do with the adults around you.
yeah.
Like
Okay,
with the
fair.
coaches believing in
Yeah.
you, with your parents supporting you, and especially with like you're a little girl. Like, okay, when I was 12, I didn't think I was a little girl, but you're a little girl. And
point.
the kids around you have a huge influence on you. And if
Yeah.
you're trying to break into the whatever like World Series as a little
Yeah.
girl and you're surrounded by boys, for girls that like you could take that so differently. For some girls you could be like, yeah, like I want to play with the boys, like I want to beat the boys. But for other girls it might be like, no, I don't want to like put myself out there, which is
Yeah.
completely fine. Like both personalities, like it's gonna happen. But at that age you're so young, you're definitely influenced, I feel like, more by the adults around you than the kids around you. So that could be a huge factor, and that just has to do with adults supporting younger girls in roles of equality.
Yeah.
That just reminded me. I read an article recently. It was about, if I'm not mistaken, it was a male coach. He's from Pakistan, and he coached guys rugby team. If I'm not mistaken, I think it was rugby. I could be mistaken. I read this like a few weeks ago. But anyway, and he has a daughter, and he said, I will not let my daughter play sports outside. And then, yeah, it just blew up because people were saying, well, you're a coach, you should understand these things. You should understand that, you know, it's their choice. If they want to do sports, you should let them. And he's like, no, you won't let me tell me what to do because we're a religious family, all that stuff. Girls will not play sports, you know, which, you know, I understand it's their religion and stuff, but also there are ways out, you know, like we saw the soccer player with the hijab, you know, you can still embrace that religion while doing what you love. So.
And people will understand.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I feel like that's... I feel like it could be kind of a touchy subject, just because, you know, personal preference, and like you were saying, obviously religion, but...
I don't think you can ban someone from playing
I don't
sports.
know. That's so sad, yeah. And that's strange that he's a coach. Like you said, you would think he understands, like, the importance of, I mean, not even sport, but just, like, physical exercise in general,
Yeah.
you know?
Exactly.
Do
Which
you
is strange,
think... Okay, this is weird. Do you think he's completely lying and just doing it to protect her, or because he's afraid that she'll be better than some of the guys? Like, do you think he's so...
I feel like maybe not this case, but yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. That just popped into my mind. I'm like, you know what? This dude's already weird. Maybe we can make this a little weirder. But...
That's weird. Well, speaking of women in sport, especially starting at, like, the grassroots age, there was a commercial. It's definitely not recent, but we just watched it in class yesterday, and it reminded me, and I think it's such a cool commercial. So I'm just going to give you a little sentence before we start it, and then we'll listen to it. It's just a minute long, but it's from Wealth Simple, which is, I believe it's a banking company, and it's based on WNBA All-Star Skylar Diggins-Smith's true story, and basically they say this commercial makes a simple case for closing professional basketball's gender pay gap. And then after this, also important to mention since we've talked about like female athletes getting sponsors, Wealth Simple endorsed Skylar and her mission with a 30-year investment portfolio. Not that I really know what that
Wow.
means, but 30 years is a very long time. So the fact that they put that
30
much
years
into it.
must
They
mean
want to
something.
support her.
All right, so let's listen to the commercial.
My first love will be basketball. By the time I was 11, I was the best player in the city, in the county, in the state. People are gonna remember my name. I'm gonna make it rain. I'll pull it from 30. Thread the needle. Razzle dazzle. Set the table. Splash. Break the dishes. I'll take my team to state. All 4 years with a 4.0. I'll go D1. I'll go D1, no problem. In college, I'll be third team All-American. First team All-American, 3 times. 2 Final Fours. 3 straight Final Fours. Back to back to back. I'll be Big East second team. Big East player of the year. Most points in school history, most steals in school history, most free throws, most triple doubles, and minutes played. And I'll get drafted in the first round. My rookie contract, $4 million. My rookie contract, will be $40,000.
Damn.
Yeah, I know. I feel like there needs to be like a mic drop after that or
Yeah.
something. Because the whole time, so just to give some context, obviously you're only hearing the audio. It's a younger male basketball player, and obviously it's supposed to be like a younger Skylar. And then at the end they show her, and then there's like some text that says Skylar's fighting for equal pay. But the whole point of it is they were saying like almost the same thing the entire time.
Yeah.
And then at the end he says, I'm going to make $4 million. And she says, I'm only going to make 400,000 or whatever, right? 40,000 maybe.
Even
Yeah.
like
40,000.
what she
Yeah.
was saying was like better. Like
Yeah, I was
she
gonna say
had,
like
Yeah.
more
her
back-to-backs.
stats were like better, like
Mhm.
more, like successful than he had been.
Also,
Yeah.
correct,
And, like-
correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure she said like set the table or like something.
Yeah, they're like using a bunch of terms. I don't really know basketball
I think
terms, to
it
be
was like
honest,
a joke.
but
Like he
yeah.
brings it to the table, and
She's
she
gonna,
actually
like,
brings
yeah.
the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw that in a meme yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I love that commercial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and like the terms that they use is like really well, like I think well put.
Mhm.
But like you said, Kennedy, like I think her stats sounded better. But regardless, like even if everything was exactly the same, yeah, like the end sentence,
Yeah.
where it's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm gonna make
'cause-
like a lot less than that.
Yeah, because he was saying like, what do you say, like second team, and then she was like all-star
4 times.
4 time. Like
Yeah.
that's insane.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I think it all really goes back to coverage. You know, we talked about
Yes.
the CWHL multiple times, and you know, you can't generate money without an audience, without coverage, without people being interested in it. You just can't. And I think the WNBA, like it just doesn't receive the same coverage as the NBA does, and therefore, like, where are they gonna get the money to pay those women? You know,
Exactly.
and without coverage, without people, you know, being interested in it, paying their money to see it, all this stuff supporting them, there's not going to be a budget to pay the players. And, you know, this is kind of a never-ending circle. So no coverage, no money, no money, no coverage. So
Yeah. Sadly.
ridiculous.
No.
Okay. Ding, ding, ding. Have a little Canadian female soccer update. Okay, so the Canadian women's national team was playing in in the China Four Nations tournament over the weekend, I believe. And captain Christine Sinclair, she scored her 183rd international goal, which means she's only 2 away from the record that we were talking about, I think that was last season, that she's trying to beat. And Canada beat New Zealand 3-0. So
Go Canada.
that's like, yeah.
yeah, we should have been in that study, not New
Oh,
Zealand.
I thought you were going to say we should have been
there.
in the tournament. I was like, not that
I mean,
good.
I'm not bashing New Zealand. I just think Canada is a very important
Yeah,
sport market
yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the same tournament, Olivia Smith, she's from Whitby, Ontario. She made her history, and she became the youngest Canadian to ever play at the international level. Do you remember, or do you want to take a guess at how old she is? She's the youngest ever.
16,
You're close.
15.
15.
Oh, I was gonna say 18.
Yeah.
Damn.
What were you guys doing when you were 15?
Not
I
that.
was playing like not a
probably
high
playing, like,
level of hockey.
Yeah.
Probably not getting the best grades at
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
So does I was playing probably like Mario Kart Wii. In my basement.
Okay, literally me.
Yeah, but I think
crazy.
both of those are so cool.
Yeah.
And the Canadian team Instagram, they posted a picture of, Christine Sinclair and, oh my God, why am I brain farting on her name? Oh my goodness. Oh, Jordan Huitema, I think that's how you say it. But I guess she must have assisted the goal or something, so they were hugging. But it's like, I don't know, I just liked looking at that picture because you've got Christine Sinclair, who's like already at the top of her game, and then Jordan, who's like, I mean, I feel like she's kind of already there, but she's still coming up, you know what I mean? So that was cool. Also, one more thing to talk about. Sorry, I feel like I have all these little updates, but I
No,
feel
it's
like a lot
okay.
happened this week. Have you guys heard of Mary Kane? So I just saw a video for it last week. But the New York Times just came out with a story about it last year. So she's a mid-distance runner, and she was once considered the fastest girl in America. And she signed with the Nike Oregon Project last year. which is, I don't know, you know, when you see athletes celebrating that they like signed with Nike. So it's more than just signing with Nike. They're actually like, it's basically a university. But basically in the video that I watched, she was explaining that their training grounds were built like on nothing. Like not physically built. I mean like the trainers were just
Started.
all his friends, and like
Yeah.
there was nothing actually that special about it, and they basically pressured her and like abused her into losing a lot of weight, and now she's not as fast as she was before. So I feel like that kind of goes off the
care
coach
about
thing.
the athlete part of
No,
her.
they just
They
wanted
just
to be
wanted
fast.
the image of
Yeah.
her. Yeah.
Which that didn't work out either. So like, I don't know what they got out of it, but
Wow, that really affects her whole career.
exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I think she like her body basically like gave up. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they were pushing her way too hard. So I believe
And
she left.
Pushing her in the wrong direction also. Like,
Yeah, not at all where
Yeah.
she actually needed to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was a little sad bit of news, but I feel like that kind of went off, I guess it was 2 weeks ago that we were talking about coaches and like the impact they have on you,
Yeah.
right? And that's a unfortunate example of a sad one, but yeah. I don't know. It's interesting to see. Also, to be named, on a positive note, to be named the fastest girl in America, how sick is that?
I know.
yeah.
So many girls are fighting for that.
Yeah. And then they
Yeah.
just completely destroyed that, which is so
Yeah.
sad.
I
But
think
I think there's still allegations though. Like it's right. Like I
Yeah.
think there's still allegations. So
okay.
pulling a Laurel, or who says it? Don't or Dan in journalism. Don't assume anything yet. But yeah,
True.
like
It's pretty obvious. But
yeah,
true.
I agree.
yeah,
was
I
gonna
don't
say,
know
like,
if she would want to create
I'm pretty
allegations that she lost her.
Yes.
yeah.
speed.
No, I know. I'm just,
No, good
Just
point.
saying.
Good point. Yeah.
but yeah, it's pretty messed up. And like you said, like a lot of people are fighting for that title and
Mhm.
that name, and then for it to like, for her to lose it in that reason, for that reason,
Yeah.
not because someone was like actually better than her, beat her, but because she was pushing her body too far, like that, being forced to push her body too far. That's pretty messed up.
I think that goes back to saying that girls should really stand up for themselves, like know
Yeah.
what they're willing to do, and when they're kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit, crossing the line, because at the end of the day, like, you're still the athlete. You're in
Yeah.
charge of your body. You're in charge of what you want to do, and even if your coach thinks that's the best thing to do, you have the right to disagree with that. And
Yeah.
it would be interesting to see if the coaches were male or if the coaches were female, because
Yeah.
I think it could be just as toxic either way. Like I've seen toxic female coaches, I've seen toxic male coaches, but it's definitely a big learning curve for athletes to realize that their coaches aren't the final say. Like
Yeah.
you are the
Yeah.
final say.
And say it, like when
Yeah.
like when you feel like something's wrong, like say it.
I think it's really important to find the right coach and to stick with them. Like, I'm not gonna say your whole career, because things can happen, but to stick with them, because if you build that bond with the coach, a really strong bond, and if you have a trustworthy coach by your side, then sometimes you don't know what's best for you, but your coach does. So that kind of goes both ways, because athletes do get lost, and they do get lost in their own heads, and that whole competition kind of circle where they need their coach to be like, okay, you're doing this, and
Yeah.
to have that other person that knows what's best for them.
Yeah.
Because-
no, definitely the people
yeah.
you surround yourself with, and making sure that they're positive people and people that have your best interest in mind. No one willingly brings a bad person into their life. So it's hard to say, like, it's easier said than done. But yeah, I agree. Like, you want to be able to trust your coach, and because sometimes they do. They are seeing things from a different perspective. Yeah. The next, I think we wanted to talk. Kennedy wanted to speak
yeah.
about something.
Kennedy has a good little
Yeah.
nugget.
So earlier this week, or I guess last week, The Gist is a like female-run sports
Started
news
here at
platform.
Ryerson.
Yep. And they posted saying that the National Women's Soccer League voted to increase player salaries, team salary caps, and allow multiple year contracts for the first time ever, as well as
Yay.
add $300,000 per team in allocation money to attract and retain top players. So that's a
step in the right
it's a step in the right
Yeah.
direction. It's
Yeah.
obviously not
I was gonna say not
nearly
yeah.
at the level that the men's players are being paid, but
It's good enough.
it's you know,
And the
as
more
I'm pretty sure
yeah.
that bottom of that post said it takes baby steps to get where you want to be. So
Yeah. And as long as they keep happening, like
yeah, exactly.
That's-
Like, let's
yeah.
not just stop here.
Yeah.
Like let's keep it going.
mm-hmm.
I think we've been seeing a lot with equal pay lately in soccer, especially with the women's national team and all that. I think it's a really good example of trailblazers. I think
Yeah.
it's a really good example of once someone does it, once someone fights for it, other people realize, hey, I can fight for this too.
Yeah.
And then it's like jumping on the bandwagon and
Exactly.
everyone's fighting now and like fighting in
It
a
just
good way.
proves
and-
the difference like that you can make. Like you don't always just have to settle or be like, oh well, I understand why this is happening. It's like, well, you might understand it, but you could also change it. And that like, yeah, exactly. I think women's soccer, they're I think starting to be like the biggest like people that are speaking up for themselves about like this isn't right.
Yeah. That's why I feel like even though there is still, obviously, like we said, even with Laurel last week, like she was saying, there's still a ways to go. But also seeing, like we were talking about the stats of actual, like the sports fans that I was mentioning at the beginning, seeing female sports in other countries so equal to males, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, I don't really know much about, like, the UK or New Zealand, like we were saying, but that's cool to see that. I'm sure they have other sports, like you were saying, netball. I know rugby is probably much bigger over there, right? To see those, and especially rugby. I feel like rugby is a really male and female sport. Like, I don't feel like it's super
Definitely.
dominated. Maybe not in Canada. Maybe it's a little dominated here, but
One thing I will say about rugby is at my high school, I mean, I guess not just rugby, but like at my high school, we'd do like buyouts for rugby games, but it was always the boys' rugby games. Like they would always get like the 1:30 game, and then we were always at 3:30 after school when people, you know, didn't have to buy out of their class to go. And like it bothered us because we're like, why do they always get the early games, right? Like why do they always get the buyout games with the big crowds, and then everyone leaves by the time we hit the field, you know what I mean?
yeah.
And it was frustrating, but I remember one time we were in what's it called, SASA, which is like our regional championships, and it was like for hockey, and it was at like obviously a different rink, so we didn't have a rink at our school, and like they did a buyout for that, so like that was a big step, and that was really good. But like that was also when I was in grade 9, and when I was playing rugby in grade 11, all the boys were getting all the buyouts and stuff. So it's like I feel like we took a step in the right direction and then like moved back again a little bit.
Two
Like,
steps forward, one step back.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
very slow moving process.
yeah.
And kind of to touch on that, speaking of female sports, I spoke with the Ryerson figure skating team recently, and they were really disappointed because a lot of people didn't know Ryerson had a figure skating team. And and it's female dominated, and no one comes to their competitions. No one does really. And this year is the first time they're hosting the OUA championships, which is a huge deal. I mean, to be good enough to host the OUA championships, it's a huge deal. And by the way, February 10th and 11th, so everyone come.
Everyone
and support
reach.
Yeah.
the figure skating team
Check
at
it
the
out.
MAC. But yeah, and they placed 5th last year in the OUA, and Canada.
Pretty
good.
Yeah, that's really, really
Jeez.
good. Yeah, that's a huge improvement from the year before, which I think they placed 11th or something. So they improved a lot, and they're doing great. And like, to touch on your topic, like as you said, no one goes to their events. No one knows about them, and it's kind of sad because like they emphasized how much they work and how much they put into that. So it's kind of sad.
Well, yeah, every morning, like when we come to the MAC for school, it's like I'll come in sometimes at 8 o'clock and they're already there. And I have a
know.
friend, she just walked by actually, who's on the team, and she is there like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. every morning. And I feel like that's just one of those sports. Like every sport is something you obviously have to practice at a lot to get good at it. But I feel like figure skating is one in particular that you just spend so much time on the ice, like improving and practicing, right?
Yeah, we don't see the side of it. Like, I think a lot of people watch figure skating at the Olympics, right? But like we don't see them
Yeah.
fall.
Figure skating is
Yeah.
a very like just
Takes
seasonal
up a lot of time.
like
Oh, yeah,
viewership. Like I think
see.
the
Mhm.
Olympics
Yeah.
and like only during big competitions.
Well, I feel like we had some really good discussions
Yeah.
today. That was cool. I feel like we kind of
job,
became little game
ladies.
experts there with some stats.
Yeah,
so
we're all like, we have one game expert in this room, and then we're all like, this stat and this
Let
stat.
me
and
tell
this
you.
stat.
So in the upcoming weeks, we're going to talk a little bit about transgender athletes. We're going to talk about Don Cherry, and I think we're also going to get some other sport media gals on the show for some cool topics. But thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.